So welcome everyone. Welcome to this webinar from Matrix to Movement. Today we're going to be talking about people-centered mobility policy planning. As you may have noticed, your cameras are shut off and so are your mics, but this is just to allow for the smooth running of the webinar. However, you are welcome to share your thoughts in the main group chat and then your questions to Christian in the Q&A section that we will be asking at the end. So this webinar will kick off with a presentation from Christian, and then we'll move on to 20 minutes of interactive Q&A with questions from you. So as you may know, today is a special day. It's the World Bicycle Day. For a bit of context, it was first introduced by the United Nations in 2018 to celebrate the uniqueness, the versatility, and the longevity of the bike as a mode of transport. Also to celebrate it as a sustainable mode of transport that is clean, reliable, affordable, and simple. But while we celebrate all these benefits today, in this webinar, we will be zooming out to consider also the role of cycling within the broader mobility system and how it relates to also other modes of transport. And we want to reflect also on who is able to move freely and who is left behind and what that implies regarding inclusive mobility. So yeah, my question is, how can we build more inclusive mobility systems? And to answer this question, we have a very special guest today, Christian Rattering. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. So you are the Senior Mobility Advisor of the municipality of Rankum, which is a small rural municipality in the east of the Netherlands. It has about 31,400 inhabitants, and recently it launched a new mobility plan that got approved by the municipal council in March this year. It's also got approved by the alderman. And what is special about this plan is that it is people-centered, and that's one of the speciality of Christian, to develop people-centered mobility plans. And so before we move on to your presentation, Christian, I want to ask one question to the audience. So what motivates your interest in inclusive mobility today? Why are you joining us today? So you can answer the poll. Few more seconds. Okay, let's see what the results have to say. Nice. Professional work in urban planning and transport. That's a winner. A lot of you are working in the field. Curiosity and learning, followed with academic interest or research, advocacy or activism, nice, and personal experience with exclusion too. Okay, thank you so much. I'll pass the word on to Christian now for his presentation.
Thank you, Louise. What a privilege to tell you something about our mobility plan today on this beautiful day. Let's first talk about how we are approaching the mobility system in the last few decades. So we go to the next slide, where there's a picture. This one, the previous one, the one with the tubes. Actually, this illustrates how we are looking at the mobility system for decades. We're looking at it as a system, like the water system. And when something is broken, we try to fix it. We replace a pipe, or we add another pipe. And you can also replace pipe for streets or roads. And when we have done that, we think we have solved it, and we think we have fixed the problem. But actually, yeah, everything we think it's broken, we are going to the same doctor, and that is on the next slide. we are every time we think that that our roads are blocked, are congested, we try to solve it with the same solution. But actually, yeah, the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting the same results. And what we're seeing is that we still do that. Also in my municipality, on the next slide, um, we invested a lot of energy in research about congestion on indoor streets. One was done in 2008 and the other in 2023. And actually, the results were the same. We add some more bricks or pavement or asphalt, and still we get the same congestion like we used to have. And we can also see that on the next slide that the car ownership has grown since 2008. Also, partly it's because the number of households increased, but mostly people drive more cars per households than before. So basically, we are still trying to do the same things over and over again. We put a lot of money into it, and actually, um, instead of getting less cars and a better functioning mobility system, um, it's the mobility system is not getting better, and actually, it seems to weaken us because we have less space for greenery, less space for social interaction, less space for walking, cycling, recreation, and in the end, for well-being. So this is why we have developed a different approach in the development of our mobility plan. And then we go to the next slide.
Little question for you. Would you say that the mobility system in your city where you're from is inclusive? Few more seconds. Okay, let's see what the results have to say. Okay. Christian, you may continue with your presentation. Christian, can you hear
Yes,
us?
can I?
Yes, you may continue with your
Okay.
presentation. Yes.
So instead of investing more money in the same kind of possible solutions, we decided to change our mobility vision plan in a different approach. We are aiming for emerging generation, meaning children, and for aging with dignity. And this whole mobility plan we developed in-house, and it was not developed by a consulting agency. The next slide will show much more about our mobility vision plan, the main departments. In our mobility plan, we put first the person and then the mobility system, instead of the opposite what we are used to. We are trying to find a way to make mobility planning more properly, instead of emphasizing the dependence on car possession. We try to spread it out all over more mobility means. And the first of all is that children, they have the right from the age of 8 years old to travel independently to school. And the other one is that seniors and people with impairments They deserve to have the possibility to age with dignity in our community. And we need to have both. Uh, for children, it's important that they can walk or cycle independently to school. A body of research, a body of literature of research showed that most of the children, they do much better in school. They have better results when they learn to do things independently. And well, when you emphasize also the aging with dignity, it also puts an emphasis on walking, because not every senior is able to cycle. But when you put an emphasis on walking, you have also eyes on the streets, which are very important for young children, and especially also their parents, to let them go independently to their schools. So it creates also some level of security. Yeah, one of the implementation is that we are trying to reclaim the street. It's not anymore to be dominated by cars, but the street is basically for everyone. That's why also our municipality signed the manifest for Reclaim the Street in the Netherlands. And we also try to have our functions to be as near to the houses of the citizens as much as possible. So people can either cycle or walk to the location they need to visit. Next. In our policy, we have an emphasis on togetherness. We are not doing this, we are not implementing this policy on our own. We do this together with the whole community. We need to work together, otherwise we will not succeed. We have an emphasis on health and livability. We want our citizens to live healthy and nice in our municipality. Of course, sustainability is important. We would like to see more space for greenery, more space for trees. There's a huge need for that if you look at the climate challenges that are approaching us or that are here today. And our policy is also dynamic and flexible. We don't we do not focus on rigid guidelines, but we try to find a balance in what works and what may not be working. So, and also as a professional, it's important to work together with other citizens. For example, you can also sometimes give a boost to a citizen's initiative, bringing new energy or offering support when things get tough. And that interaction is very, very valuable. We also dare to empower others. Example given, we have in the Netherlands the Cyclists Union, and we explicitly mentioned that we acknowledge them as our eyes and ears. So by recognizing them in that role, we strengthened them. We strengthened each other's impact. Next one. And for its implementation, we use a transition strategy. We are using experiments. In this way, we are not very attached to strict guidelines, but we try to find out what works and what doesn't work. Actually, this is not something new. It's something that is in the books for many years. And Jane Jacobs wrote it already in her book in 1961. Cities are laboratories of experiments, and that's what we are trying to do in our community. Sometimes you can expect bad results, but failure is the ingredient that gives success its flavor eventually. And we are trying to find out what works and what doesn't work. What works, we will secure it in public space guidelines. And very important for us is that it has to be attached with sustainability, with health, welfare, and livability. Next. Yes, these are a few examples as inspiration for experiments, but I'm very sure there are going to be other examples. Actually, in the last 3 weeks, something came up and it's going to be implemented. And I hope you will follow the website of Urban Cycling Institute, and hopefully we can make an article about that so you can see how our policy is implemented in a very specific example. The next one, please. Well, this seems, I think for many people, this is familiar. Our emphasis in the mobility policy is first on pedestrians, then cyclists, then public transport, then shared users, car sharing, bicycle sharing, and the last is private car. This doesn't mean that we abandon the cars, but they are not the main priority anymore. And actually, this is most of the information that we have about our mobility plan. If you would like to talk more, you can contact me. And I'm very interested in answering possible questions.
Thank you so much, Christian, for this very insightful presentation. So what I can remember for it is that Renkum is indeed a good example of bold, people-centered mobility planning, one that considers the needs of the vulnerable, in your case, the elderly and the youth, and one that is also rooted in local knowledge, and one which embraces experimentation in terms of the implementation of the plan. So to open up this Q&A moment, I'm gonna start with a question, and in the meantime, feel free to add your questions to the Q&A chat. So my first question to you, so the Renkum Mobility Plan emphasizes autonomy of the children and the dignity and autonomous mobility of the elderly. What inspired this human-centric approach?
Yes, actually, it's people, it's life experiences, it's professional experience. As I am also doing a PhD, and my professor are guiding me very well. I used to work for a different municipality, and in that municipality, I did a research about pedestrian and cyclists in the inner city. And when doing that, I discovered that some parts of the infrastructure were not used as much as a traffic engineer would expect. And when starting to dig in the backgrounds about that, we found out that there was, for example, a tunnel which was hardly used by a lot of people because the tunnel was too scary and people showed anxiety. I talked about this with my wife, who is a psychologist, and she told me that a lot of people, they show to have anxiety, and some of them, they are registered for treatment, but they don't come to the practice because something happened during their way to the practice. So that was also the moment that my research for my PhD was born, and it showed to me that if we keep on looking just from the engineering perspective, we are missing a lot of uh, um, people to give them the chance to move from one place to the other and to meet each other, because mobility is not about traveling from A to B, but it's also about connecting and life itself. And also what's very important was for us as Renkum, we had the chance to have a large group of French people over and to show them around in Renkum, and we learned a lot from that. And I would recommend to everyone who is involved in municipality, if you have such an opportunity, use it, because you learn a lot, much more than you learn from books.
Thank you, Christian. So we have quite a few questions that popped up in the group chat. So you are working on making mobility policies that cater to the needs of the vulnerable. And I have one question in the chat that asks, how did you then involve the citizens, the people, in making this plan? And were there some sort of backlash or negative feedback that you received during
Yes, yes.
the
I'm
development process?
We are in Renkum, we are very lucky to have a special group of inhabitants that are involved in moving around with an impairment. And we have very interesting debates together. We just work together to find out how can we um, help each other to get this also in the mobility plan. And so they also have an important role in the city council, and I am very proud that our mobility plan was established with complete unanimity. So we have a lot of support for this policy.
Thank you. I have another question. So, do you have any interventions that are part of this plan that require community participation, community involvement? And what kind of participatory planning measures would you take in such case?
Yeah, actually, basically, we try to implement this policy completely together with our inhabitants. So we are in contact continuously with them. For example, we have a ferry which brings people from one side of the river to the other, and we have a very strong relationship with them. We try to find ways to support them. Same is with the cyclist union or whatever. We are continuously trying to be a team together. That is the difference. We don't think in them or us. We think in us. We're doing it together. We need each other because otherwise we don't get anywhere.
And the plan got approved in March. So I guess the next steps are to start implementing some of the measures in the plan. Do you have an example of one measure that would that is about to be implemented that would involve the community in some ways? I know that you do also a lot of work around like school and redesigning the environments of the school so that children can actually cycle to school and that they can play around the school safely. Is there any such plan as part of this policy that is going to be implemented sometime soon?
Yeah, very soon. Actually, we are now at the start of the implementation of this policy. We have a few we have at least one pilot running about changing car parkings into parking for bicycles. It seems to be very successful. So I hope we can also write an article about that, so we can show you in more detail how we did that and why we decided to change the parking for cars into parking for bicycles. Also how we found the support from the locals. So yeah, if- I think from now it's starting to work with it and uh, to uh, yeah, to implement it, to do it together with citizens, and that's what we are doing. We also are changing our streets. Some parts are already um, redesigned into more space for cyclists, so they can cycle more safe, and more space for pedestrians. And we are going to continue to implement that all over the municipality, but it takes time and also a lot of money, and that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, thank you. I also have some questions in the group chat about how to push for this paradigm shift in the approach to mobility from this more traditional engineering approach to this people-centered approach. Someone is asking, how did you trigger that mental shift in the politicians, like within the municipality and your coworkers in
Yeah.
Hong Kong? And someone else is saying that the UK is 50 years behind the Netherlands in terms of active travel provision.
Mhm.
Um, how do you get to get yeah? How do you get your politicians on board, and how do you trigger this paradigm shift?
Yeah, honestly speaking, in Renkum it was very easy. Um, um, Most of them they already had a mindset in that kind of direction. I had a colleague who said, "Oh, I get so tired of those parking guidelines. Can't we get rid of that?" And actually, that's the first policy I made for this municipality. I wrote a parking policy which is much more flexible than it used to be. Not rigid, but if you can do with less parking spaces, um, give us a good support how to do it. And um, um, actually, yeah, I didn't get much, how you say that? Debate. It's most people were already in a very good mindset. They understand that if we continue in working in the way we used to do, then our mobility system is going to get stuck.
So what would you recommend then to a city where cycling is not as much part of the daily mobility culture? Uh, what arguments would you use then to get politicians on board of that shift?
Well, if you keep on emphasizing the importance of cars, it absorbs a lot of space. If you can invest much more in also cycling or public transport or pedestrians, um, you can create also more space for example, housing, which is, I think, in every city a huge issue. So yeah, you have to try to find a balance in the mobility means. And what is very important, uh, a lot of people think, oh, you're against cars when you emphasize the need of investing in cycling, but that is not the case. Also in Renkum, we know it's important as well to have possibility to travel by car, because some people they can't walk or they can't cycle, or they live too far from the functions they need to visit. So it's important to find a way to present the mobility planning more properly. So finding a balance in every transport means. And sometimes it means choosing for cycling, especially in the schools environment. If you manage to emphasize the need for cycling and to um, uh, get the car parked at some distance, it would be very beneficial.
Thank you very much, Christian. I would like to ask a question to the audience, actually, because I feel like the meaning of inclusive mobility really varies depending on the political, geographical, cultural context of a place. My question to the audience is, what do you think are the key elements of an inclusive mobility system in where you are from yourself? You can type in a short answer. Few more seconds. Okay, 20 replies. Let's see what the results say. Mm, okay, we cannot actually see the replies for some reason. I'm gonna address this question to my colleague Lilian. Are you able to see the answers or are they anonymous? Because for me they are anonymous. They're anonymous. So if some people want to share their answers in the main chat, then that would be nice because logistic planning issue here. They are anonymous, so we're not able to see your answers. But yeah, feel free to ask more questions for Christian in the Q&A chat if you have any. Otherwise, I have one for you, Christian. Which aspects of the mobility plan excites you the most? How is it so different from the previous mobility plan of Renko?
What I like the most is that we are doing it together. It's not one of let's say craziest questions I got from one of my colleagues from another department was, to who does the mobility plan belong? He said, it doesn't belong to us from the mobility department. It's belong to us all together. And then something start to change in their mindset, and that was really inspiring, refreshing, and giving a lot of perspective for the future. So I think working together, not just internally but also externally, it really makes a huge difference. For example, we had the privilege to have a professor over to talk with my city council and with me. And at that time, I thought I had the mobility plan ready for 80%. And after the discussion, after the debate, I said, oh no, wait. I wrote it for 60%. I have to restart something. And we learned a lot from that. Very important is to be open for reflection and to try to improve as much as possible. And even now we have the mobility plan ready, but maybe over 5 years, maybe we think we should change something or adapt something. It's all in the game. But the importance is to be a team with others.
Um, I'm seeing that some people also put some questions to you, but in the main webinar chat. Someone is asking, so how did you balance the technical data like traffic flows, models, and matrices with the lived experience and community input
Mhm.
when drafting this plan?
Yeah, I actually, yeah, the traditional data that belongs to the traditional mobility planning. For example, one of the streets in our municipality, when a traffic engineer looks at it, he will say, "Oh no, it's okay. It doesn't. Every there isn't really a problem." But if you look from a different view, others think, "Oh, it's really a problem. How can I cross this street? It's um, um, the how the street is used is overwhelming." So if you look at it from a different angle, you get a different result. And to me, it's not so important how many cars are on the street. But for me, it's important who is not able to use the street. So, and what is the meaning of that for their life situation? Some people, they can't reach a certain place where they would like to go because of how the mobility system is organized. So that makes a difference. And yeah, the amount of cars, it's still a part of uh, a model, and a model is always a simplification of a realistic situation. So yeah, I use it only to get some impression about a situation, but most important, I think, is to know, to find out who is not using a certain situation.
And if you didn't face as much backlash, either political or from the citizens, is there any other challenges that you faced when developing this plan?
Mm, the only problem was at the beginning, my former colleagues. Actually, I started this job the 2nd of January last year, and our team is completely new, and our former colleagues, they had hired um, an agency to develop the mobility plan, and actually they didn't manage to succeed in that, and that was the biggest challenge. And actually, in the September the 5th, they said, we are sorry, we can't do this job." So then we had to do it ourselves. And for me, it's okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Uh, my colleague has made like a word cloud with the answers from the last poll, so we should be able to visualize them if I start sharing the slides again. Hopefully, we can see the word cloud. Let me check. So, no, it doesn't work. Okay. Um, mm, mm, mm. Okay, but we do have, so among the answers, so what makes an inclusive mobility system to you, we have safety that came back a lot, um, having some stops. I'm gonna read some answers from the group chat. So, co-creation, safety and reliability, equal spaces for all transport modes, um, no non safety and non-stop, no junctions, co-designing appropriate solutions. Someone is saying that it's an important part to ensuring inclusion, having reserved parking for bikes, accessibility for the most vulnerable groups, giving the most space in the street to most users, so efficiency. Someone else is saying, I think that one of the key feature is that we need to ensure mobility or perhaps better access isn't reliant on the financial means. Accessibility, so we have a lot of keywords that come back a lot. Does anyone else have another question for Christian? We are reaching the end of the webinar, but we could take a few more questions, so you can drop them in the Q&A chat or in the main chat. So someone is asking, what are the first steps to initiate a mobility plan in a city where there is little awareness or political will, and where mobility challenges are not recognized for the majority as a social issue?
A
What would
very
be the
good
first
question.
step?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, what you need to do is to find ways to there's always some kind of understream, that's how I call it, in a community. People who really are able to strive for the goals with engagement. And if you know um, um, if you know how to connect with them, to work together with them, eventually if this group is growing, eventually their goals will end up in the upper stream. That's where your city councils are. So um, um, you need to try to develop the social movement, and it costs a lot of energy. It may be even so that it takes you years to develop such a movement. For example, we have in the Netherlands, I'm very respectful for his work, Professor Marco de Bromstroet. He's striving for years to develop the rechtvaardige straat, the slide with the reclaiming the street. And this movement is growing, but it takes a lot of energy. And you must be aware of that. Sometimes it takes energy, and sometimes it starts moving. For example, if you look at Paris, what Paris did in the last couple of years regarding to cycling, wow, it's really amazing. It's amazing. So important is not to give up, to keep on working together, fighting for it, and respect each other, yeah, and stay in debate with each other.
Someone else is asking, I appreciate the description of an independent and spontaneous um, system, I guess, from Rancun. In my area, mobility for the disabled must be scheduled, and public transportation is limited, making both options very inconvenient and require vast amounts of extra time for users. That's what someone is sharing. Someone else is saying, Christian, thank you so much for all your insights. I wonder how flexible you need to be when developing a mobility plan in a city like Rancun. How can you set the baseline, and how can you measure the effectiveness of it so that you reaccommodate as needed? It must be challenging, mustn't it?
Of course, it's challenging, but it's also fun. We are trying to use experiments and to find out what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes maybe it's a failure, but sometimes it's also a success. And you can celebrate the success together with others. And the failures you must also discuss with others. and just be open in that. And I think I think we will have a lot of success in the next few years. And of course, we are monitoring everything.
Thank you so much, Christian. So our webinar is now coming to an end. I want to thank you guys for joining and for taking the time. Thank you, Christian, for sharing your expertise today. And I would like to leave you with a question and food for thought. If you had to convince one key decision maker, or if maybe you are a decision maker yourself, to support more people-friendly mobility in your city, what story or what example from today's webinar would you be using? That's a question I have for you, the audience. And yeah, Christian, do you have any last thoughts that you would like to share with us before we finish the webinar?
Um, last thought, anyone who is more interested can also always contact me. You have the data on the end of the presentation. Um,
Yeah.
uh, I am very curious to read all the remarks and questions because it also helped me in the further development of policy. I think that is the most important, to be open for changes, for reflection. Um, um, I'm very impressed how many people are have joined this webinar and is interested in this topic. And when it is related to impairment, yeah, that asks a lot of investment. I see this also with my PhD, which is a very specific group of people with impairments, meaning people with an anxiety disorder. It takes a lot of energy and effort to also bring that topic to the surface, especially among traffic engineers. It's not an easy task, but that is our fate.
Thank you so much. And my colleague Lilian shared in the group chat also a link to your latest article that you wrote as part of your PhD about the experience of people who suffer from anxiety in transport. So you may also have a look at that. And yeah, just before concluding, the recording of this webinar will be up on our Substack sometime soon. And if you agree to it, you'll be added to our email list so we can keep in touch about future events. And if you want to learn more about cycling and mobility planning in Amsterdam, we also offer some study excursions with the UCI. You can find all the links about this in the group chat. My colleague Lilian is dropping them. And yeah, in September, we will be hosting our annual conference about cycling, the Cycling Research Board. So you are also welcome to sign up for that and join us in November. And finally, we also wrote an article with Christian about this mobility plan where we go more in depth about it. And it was based on some interviews that I conducted with Christian, also while he was still drafting the plan a few months back. So yeah, you may also read this article. And yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining and have a very nice rest of your cycling day. I hope you have a chance to go on a cycling ride yourself and maybe bring some friends along.